This is Tech Talk on a Tuesday. Probably the best named tech show in the world. It's just Jimmy came up with it. He's like, hey, why don't we call it Tech Talk on a Tuesday? And I'm like, yes, that's maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but I can't stop thinking about it. So there you go. Anyway, so Jimmy, I'm gonna let you make some introductions, and then I will roll the fancy intro.
Yeah, sure. We are pretty excited because we heard about cc32d9, but actually we didn't really know he was cc32d9 until after we found out that he was cc32d9, and we knew.
Sorry, what was his name again?
Yeah, cc32d9. I feel like we're about ready to go full Star Wars here, but
I can't pronounce it myself actually. I'm always just getting stuck with it.
But yes, well, we're going to call you Stan from now on. You're also known as Stan, but welcome, Stan, to Tech Talk on Tuesday. And we're super excited. You've got a lot of stories to tell, a lot of experience in the biz, and we're excited to have one of the best on our show. And for all you people who are listening, please, if you have any technical questions, drop them in the comments, and we can maybe get some answers. That'd be awesome. So.
If you manage to share while this is playing, send the YouTube link out or send the Twitter link out. If you share while this video is playing, you will eventually someday be given 1 million of something. Welcome to Tech Talk on a Tuesday, where Corey and Jimmy talk to smart people about tech that is way above their head, but intensely informative, super fun. Sooner or later, somebody's going to make an inappropriate joke. We're definitely going to give away a bunch of NFTs. And quite frankly, we're just going to learn it for the whole time. If you have any ideas about who we should have on Tech Talk on a Tuesday, please let us know by adding us in the comments or just finding us, just stalk us down. It's fine. Just talk to us. Tech Talk on a Tuesday. So I meant to do the one that didn't have the voiceover on it and totally failed. And even now, that's just getting campy at this point.
Yeah, but you went total old school there. That was the pre-EOSIO weekly branding too. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like none of we're pretty. I mean, we're professionals, CC. So I want to make sure everyone knew that, because we definitely have to tell people we're professionals, because nobody in their right mind would believe it otherwise, which is fair. Anyway, welcome, man. Jimmy.
3 CCs in the house actually today. We got 3 CCs in the house actually today. We got Corey Cottrell, we got cc32d9, and I've got a glass of CC and soda.
I see what you did there. All right, so in keeping with the traditions, Stan, we get people in game in the uplift just briefly, and we throw up on these permanent monuments one thing that our guest is grateful for every morning. So what's one thing you're grateful for? It could be big, it could be small, it doesn't matter. You just need to be grateful for it.
I don't know. So what should I do? I just missed. I have no idea what this is.
No problem. So these are monuments where basically people come to into the uplift and they throw up one thing that they're grateful for. So grateful for Coffee Baby updates. One of our friends is pregnant. Small Town Cowboys grateful for this community, whatever. Right. So just we want one thing from you that you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for actually meeting the most awesome people in my career. I mean, in this three years of EOSIO life, I mean, it's just the most awesome time in my career. I haven't seen so many brilliant people. It's just amazing. I mean,
all right.
I've been working as a consultant, as a contractor since ages already.
Yeah,
like 15 years already. But my, let's say, audience was relatively small, like maybe 100 people that I talked to, and I knew. But basically, with start of EOS, I just learned so many like brilliant people from around the globe, doing awesome things and building together, right? So that was the whole mood of 2018 was to build something awesome together. It's like launching a rocket, basically, right? In 1950s, hundreds or thousands of people working on a common goal, and that was it was a really exciting time. It's still quite exciting, but not as high mood today as 3 years ago. But yeah, it's still good.
Do you think that like prices just kind of starting to come up off the floor? Do you think that energy can come back, or like are you hopeful that same kind of energy is gonna come in, or does it need to be sort of closer to the start for that kind of vibe to really exist?
I don't know. Difficult to say. It's basically some people cooled down, some people left the scene. So it needs to be something completely new and brilliant to get these people again together, right? So now that basically we are exploiting what we've earned so far in the last 3 years, in terms of experience and connections between people. So now it's a bit like daily life already, right? 3 years ago it was like, I don't know, working 15 hours a day was normal, right? So even not being paid. So now people start looking basically at other options and personal life and profits and basically it's a different story already. But we'll see. Maybe something new, totally new pops up and we rush again into something totally new.
Yeah, it's called the Uplift. We'll send you an invite.
Uplift. I heard the name. I never took the time to. I'm not a gamer. My kids are actually more gamers than I am. So.
Yeah, we would love to have them in. I mean, and we'll and so tell us more about who do you work for now? You know, what kind of projects are you kind of most?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. I'd like the background story of and I know you're associated with EOS Amsterdam too. So.
Yeah, how it started. Well, basically, I've been engineer and contractor and software developer since quite a while, since like late 90s, and then basically in 2018. EOS started. I knew about EOS. I bought some token on ICO. I didn't really look into technology, but then I don't remember, a few days before the launch of EOS, I had just basically a few days gap between projects, and I just had some spare time, and I looked into details. What exactly EOS is doing, how it's built, what is inside, and what kind of people are running it, and it just blew me away, right? It just swallowed me, and I started writing some smart contracts, digging through the source, writing some blog articles. It was just, and basically about half a year before that, I just registered just randomly. I just needed a nickname, and I took hash from my real name and just first 6 symbols from the hash, and created this Medium blog and also GitHub account just to start publishing something randomly. But then basically on EOS, it started big, right? So I started to be involved and working almost full time on different kinds of stuff. So basically, and I just kept using this nickname, and it became an identity, basically. I didn't want to have a second identity, but it is, right? It is a second identity with reputation and a bunch of code on GitHub and articles. So that's how it started. And then basically, so I followed. I was independent contractor till April 2019. So I started writing some articles on smart contracts and reviewing some other people's code. And then I got my first customer was EOS Bet, the casino, the first casino. Just before the launch, they asked me to review the smart contracts and help with infrastructure. And I'm still helping them on some infrastructure services. I'm not reviewing their smart contracts anymore. They got basically their own developers for that. But that's how it started. And basically, so I'm my first big customer on EOS. And in 2019, I was basically working almost full time on EOS related projects. But then Telus and Wax launched, so I was also involved with them. So it was just a mix of everything. I was basically busy everywhere. And in April 2019, Red, the CEO of EOS Amsterdam, invited me to the team. So I joined them as a CTO. So started working on EOS Amsterdam projects and basically bringing in my luggage of projects that I've been working before into EOS Amsterdam. And I met the guys. I live near Zurich, so basically I'm not from Amsterdam, but I've been in Amsterdam a couple of times and met the guys in person. So yeah, that's how it started. And what I worked for, basically, I reviewed a bunch of smart contracts from everywhere, basically. There was even not Uniswap, it was, I forgot the name, YOLO. I think it was YOLO, right? Mm-hmm. One of the kind of Uniswap projects were for token swaps. I was also reviewing their contracts. Well, I can't even remember all of them. It's like 15 different teams that approached me for code review, for advisory, for everything. So apart from that, we had some money at EOS Amsterdam when it all started in 2019. We still had some money, so I started some research work, and I explored basically NFCs, the near field communication microchips. You have in almost every smartphone, you have your NFC reader, and there's a ton of different NFC chips. And I wrote a research paper as basically as part of EOS Amsterdam research and development, explaining what kind of NFC chips are available and what they do and what kind of use cases could be possible. So that started pretty well. Now, but then we were kicked out from EOS paid zone, so the budget was reduced, of course, and I've done some research also on my own time. So basically, that resulted basically in one of the prototypes for authenticity checks. So I still have a bunch of these microchips on my desk, just as a toy, right? Some Lego bricks with the NFC chips on them. So that's one part of the story. So basically, it's kind of physical NFT, right? It's a physical object with unique certificate, unique signature attached to the physical object. So I'm trying to explore basically this kind of applications where blockchain could be linked with physical objects.
Yeah. So how is that related in any way to like what projects like VeChain or I think it's almost dead now, but Walton Chain we're doing with like I think there's another one as well that I misplaced, but they are kind of tracking food and other things on the blockchain. I mean, is that the intent of what you're building with these chips?
It's kind of, yeah, I've seen some videos from VeChain. There's a bunch of videos in Chinese with English subtitles. So they don't explain much, unfortunately, and they don't disclose any source code. They just basically explain some common terminology and how it works in general. So what I wanted to build is open source basically open standard, right? So some open standard where anyone can build, like EOSIO, right? So EOSIO is open standard. Anyone is free to build their own blockchain or build their own software which interacts with existing blockchains. So I wanted the same approach. So basically, in terms of this traceable authenticity, verifiable authenticity, and physical stickers. Basically, what I did, I just developed an open protocol for writing these chips, labeling these chips, and reading, and I made also open source prototype for interacting with these chips. So, well, I couldn't find any budget yet or any customer who would like to continue the development, but the idea is basically to have some open standard, open platform. VChain is totally closed. You don't see any source code. There was some startup on Ethereum. They were embedding chips into sneakers, some expensive sneakers, where you can verify the authenticity with my smartphone. Again, no open standard, right? Something that you can read from smartphone, and it shows you that it is authentic. But there's no basically third-party verification, nothing. It's a closed system. What I want is open system, right? So.
No, sorry about that. That makes a lot of sense. Like, it's, if you think about it, right? Like, I'm in Asia, and there's a big black market for, like, the Chinese are great at things, and people maybe misunderstand this, but like, there's an old Chinese proverb that basically says, like, in order to create something, they usually talk about art, but you need to, be able to make it a copyright of the master better than the master himself, like before you can like have the ability to create new stuff. And so they do this with like these brand name bags or these shoes. And actually that's pretty smart. Like if you put a chip in it to prove the authenticity of it, it's kind of like what we do with collectibles on the blockchain as well, right? We have this authenticity, and like I guess like there was this group of people in Japan at one point in time. They were breaking the top Mercedes-Benz thing off of the hood of the car, and then they were like super gluing it to like their old K car or whatever. Like it was pretty funny, but like I guess you could cut it out of the sneaker and put it in a new sneaker, but it's still better than like what we have, right? You could actually verify that these sneakers or these shoes or I wasn't thinking about that aspect. I was more thinking about like TE Food, for example, like they're tracking they're tracking the supply chain when it comes to organics and foods and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
that too. I talked to a guy in Ghana or Kenya. Well, basically the farmers are in Ghana. The guy himself is probably in Nigeria. I forgot, sorry. It was more than a year ago. But basically, he talks to farmers. Farmers are growing food and cocoa beans. So they're exporting cocoa beans. They package them. They take care of them. This is high quality cocoa beans for chocolate. The chocolate factory receives garbage. Somewhere on the way, basically, somebody replaced the good cocoa beans with some average or basically bad quality, and sold the good ones again. And basically, there's not so much of a solution, right? So now the chocolate factories basically they just know that some percentage of what they receive is counterfeit. They can't do anything with this. They just need to basically look closer what they receive. So all kinds of food traceability is related problem. Clothes, art objects, lots of stuff. And basically these stickers, some of them are made to be basically the seals, right? This on my desk is actually, it's a bit tangled here. It's a metal cable and chip basically in some plastic enclosure. It is basically sturdy enough to sustain any kind of physical interaction, and basically you cannot open it up without destroying it. So you can just visually observe that the seal is all right. So and this metal cable you can insert only once, and you cannot pull it out. So you can lock a door or some closet with it. So, or container. There are stickers which are fragile, so they are made fragile. So you cannot basically unstick it without destroying the chip. And so there are some extra layers of security. So you can protect your physical things pretty well with this. And technology is cheap. It's less than $1, less than half $1. I think, depending on physical shape, it could be like between 5 cents and like 30 cents or something. So and what I basically tried to achieve with this is to bring technology to everyone, basically. If you're a small maker, small producer of anything, you can buy, I don't know, 100 of these stickers from China, use your mobile phone, label them, stick on your product and ship, basically. And it's totally open for everyone. So that is the goal. So far, I'm not far with this. I still need to find the budget for implementing the mobile application. But I've got the prototype and I've got the knowledge, so I'm trying to present this to potential customers. So that is one of the stories. But basically, I'm working on totally like a million different directions. So these physical NFC stickers is just one of possible directions. I'm also quite good at writing smart contracts. So basically, I wrote a few myself, and then I reviewed a few from other people. So basically, I'm trying to bring some e-commerce on the blockchain, because on EOS at the moment, or Telos or Wax, the only thing you can buy so far is NFTs on Wax, right? So you have more or less established e-commerce environment for NFTs on Atomic Hub or Atomic Market, right? Also, Simple Market for simple assets is quite established. But you cannot sell any physical goods, for example, because there's no infrastructure. There's no easy way to accept payments. So if you want to sell something, you go where? You basically set up a PayPal account and start accepting PayPal. If you want to accept cryptocurrency like EOS or I don't know, USDT, some pegged tokens on EOSIO blockchain, you can't do it simply. You need to invest a ton of money into infrastructure, pay developers, and it's a burden, right? It's a barrier for adoption. So that's why I'm trying to solve. I basically came up with a couple of smart contracts which allow you to set up basic infrastructure for selling goods. So you just list your goods, you list the price, you list exact amount of token that you want to receive for your item, and smart contract is taking care of receiving this amounts of money and sending it to you. So still the missing part is basically the web shop itself, and then delivery and tracing. So still a lot of work to do, but basically that's just my latest, let's say, hobby project. I made smart contract for e-commerce. So
there is actually a question down below that we'll get to, but I'd like to go through them in turn, because there's a question related down below about the smart contracts, but I'd like to go through them in turn because I don't want to miss anyone. So maybe if we could go through the one that Corey put on the screen about Gary, because I think that's quite an interesting one. What's your opinion on the new power up model? Unless you had another question, Corey. Sorry.
No, I wanted to do exactly that, just to make sure we don't miss anybody's questions.
Power up. Well, it is. I think it is an important step for the blockchain to start earning money, basically, because at the moment these free transactions are quite a burden for all, let's say. So basically, we have block producers which are bearing costs of infrastructure. Some of them get rewards from their ranking, right? But basically, these free transactions are quite a burden on infrastructure. Now we have the whole blocks history is about 1.5 terabytes of data. It's just raw history, right? And if you need to expand it to actually see all traces, all details of each transaction, it's like about 7 terabyte already. And then you index it in so basically what you see in blocks.io or any other explorer is taking like terabytes of storage, many terabytes of storage, and huge hardware and hundreds of hours of work of engineers to actually collect this data, index it, and present it to the public. So there's a huge burden on the whole infrastructure, and people are basically not paying much for that, right? They send their thousands of transactions per day. They just pay once and use forever, and that is basically the economy model that I don't like, right? So it's Dan's original economy design. I'm quite an opponent of that in general, but basically what is happening now is basically that blockchain is used by, let's say, most active users on expense of everyone else. So and this power up model is the first step to actually try to fix this, because at least, well, the infrastructure providers will still not get any profits from power up, but at least the token owners will start earning by providing the resource to others. So I hope at some point it will transform also into pay-per-use model, which basically was not what we got, right? What was announced in ICO. In ICO, it was like free transactions for everyone. Well, we got free transactions. We got like 1 billion of transfers per week during this ADAS mining, which just stopped recently. It was like a year of nightmare for all infrastructure providers. I mean, you can't even index your history. I mean, it takes months now to actually just re-index the history of use. So, basically, that is the drawback of free transactions model, and this power up is hopefully fixing it. I hope so. If it's not fixing, then we figure out something else.
Yeah. Well, that maybe leads into Gary's next question, which was on the screen. What's his opinion on the state of history solutions? That was really well timed. It's
well, I wrote an article actually.
Gary knows.
See my blog basically. I wrote an article about history and notifications on EOSIO. So basically, how it started, right? So in 2018, Node.js had a history plugin, which was working for a few months quite okay, but it was not scalable, not scalable at all, because it was mapping the history into server memory, and server RAM is basically not endless, right? And it was always growing, and at some point it was just too expensive to maintain, and a few teams bought really beefy servers, like EOS Sweden, and someone else was providing it. They had like terabytes of RAM on their servers to provide the history. So it's just not scalable, right? You cannot grow this in this direction endlessly. So I made my ZeroMQ plugin at that time. It was like summer 2018. Basically, I just saw this problem, right? So we have always growing history. It is stored in server RAM. That doesn't work really well. So the first thing was this ZeroMQ plugin. It was working pretty well for about a year, but there were some problems with it because it was losing data because of ZeroMQ library itself. It didn't guarantee that the data delivery was done completely. So it was losing some data. But then Todd Fleming, I think he joined Block One in summer. I don't know exactly when, but around the launch time of EOS, Todd has joined the Block One team. And that was one of the first deliveries. It's called State History Plugin. So State History Plugin is basically exporting raw data of transaction history into packed binary form and stores them on the disk. That was already a huge step forward because it was compact. You don't basically need, it was very modest on CPU load. You just need to provide hard disk, basically big enough to store it, and that's it. But then it's a binary format. You cannot use it for end user, basically cannot use it. So you need solutions to actually decode it from binary format into some JSON data and basically start using this data. So that's where I jumped in. It was like September, October 2018. I basically came up with a proposal to build a history solution using this state history plugin. I think it was Rohan or Roshan. One of the guys from EOS Authority proposed the name Chronicle. And basically, I just started the crowdfunding effort. Basically, I found 15 teams. Each of 15 teams was able to grant like 2,000 EOS something. So basically, all in all, we collected $30,000. That was around November 2018. I started working on it. By the time I was about to release something, it was mid-January 2019. It was already worth $15,000. The tokens were frozen. I didn't have access to the EOS that was collected, basically. So I got $30,000 worth of EOS locked for me, basically locked in a multi-sig account. I couldn't use it. So by the time I had basically the software at hand, it was already like 15,000. But we basically, a huge part of this was ready for release. So we basically made an agreement that I deliver only the Chronicle part, but not the whole history solution. I got my money basically, and this Chronicle software started to be used in different projects. So different kinds of projects started using it. It's basically, it's not a full history solution, but at least you get history events in some readable form in JSON, a stream of JSON objects. You can index them. You can do basically many things with it. In parallel, Igor from EOS Rio started working on his Hyperion. I think he started about that time, about September, October 2019. So basically, he was working independently, and EOS Rio, I guess, had some income from as being a top 21 EOS producer. So they developed their own product, and it turned out that basically they had the ability and budget to develop a full history solution. And it is today is basically the only history solution that is working, that anyone can install and start using. So Hyperion is basically the ultimate history solution on EOSIO at the moment. In parallel, EOS Canada, Alex Bourget was working on their own solution, which is Diffuse. So it also started around autumn 2018, I think. Wait a second, it's noisy here. So they developed Diffuse, which is also awesome platform, and they offered it as a commercial service. Around early 2020, they open sourced it. And there is also EOS Nation is now running community version of it. So basically, there are two solutions of two and a half solutions, right? Hyperion, Diffuse, and Chronicle. So Hyperion and Diffuse offer you complete history solution. You can basically point your application to it and get the history that you need. Chronicle is kind of a pipe supplier, right? So it just gives you a pipe with raw JSON data that you need to process somehow. And still, I mean, it is in use. I'm using I'm running, I don't remember, like 30 or 40 Chronicle instances in production. So it is in use, and a few other projects, few other teams are also using it. So yeah,
a lot of people are using Gray Mass's history nodes as well recently, and we heard that actually. We're going to have Michael from EOS USA on next week on Monday to actually, because one of his kind of passions in the space, one of the things he's really interested actually is these history nodes as well. So. We're going to be talking about that as well. But yeah, like obviously you're way over my head on this. Like I know a little bit about Fuse and some of these Hyperion, but I from a technical level, I don't know it all. So
well, I've been living in this, right? So for 3 years for full time. Basically, Gray Mass history. I just forgot about to mention that Gray Mass modified original history plugin in Node.js to keep only recent history. So basically, because the original plugin was just smashing the network, the memory with the full history, right? And so the plugin of Gray Mass, it was just limiting it. It was just cutting off, just discarding old data. So you could get quickly access to like your last 1,000 transactions or maybe 10,000 transactions of your account, and the rest should be retrieved from some slower solutions like Hyperion. Mm-hmm.
So I have a question, kind of slightly related to that, and I'm just curious because I'm not sure if this is a kind of a question that even will make sense, but thinking about like some of these blockchains that are like sharding and if you think about like Zilliqa and what they are aiming to do, and then looking at like what Blockbase is kind of created with their kind of system whereby like everything is kind of run on a kind of private chain, but then feeds back to the mainnet. Is this a viable solution for still running full history nodes, or is this something that doesn't really matter anymore? That we don't really need them? Because I again, I'm not a developer. But it seems like, we have the ability to infinitely scale with something like Blockbase for applications that want to run on their side chains and monetize those as well. I'm just wondering if it.
Well, I mean, you just cannot have an unlimited amount of data, right? So you need to somehow filter or basically discard old data. I don't know what basically the community will choose. So at the moment, it is still manageable, right? You still can have a few terabytes of storage and some modern servers with a lot of memory and CPU power, and you can handle the history. But I mean, what's going to happen in a couple of years? We don't know, right? So it is already quite heavy after 3 years of operations. Well, almost 3 years, right? So that is a problem. Probably a possible solution would be that basically nobody will have full history. That might happen. That if you need a history of your own account, you need to pay basically for someone's effort to scan your history. History of your own account, but maybe I would guess basically that public full history as a public service will somehow transform into partial history, or maybe history on demand, basically. I mean, it's growing fast. It's expensive to operate. I mean, EOS Nation is basically running at loss. Gray Mass is running at break even basically, but they don't have good salaries, so they're just fans of what they're doing, right? So it's just pure enthusiasm. So basically, it is a hard job to maintain, and it's pretty expensive. So at some point in time, people will decide to cut it, right? So to basically start discarding some old data. It's inevitable.
I just want to hashtag history on demand and take it totally out of the blockchain space, because that's hilarious. I love history on demand. Just that idea, not even thinking about blockchain with EOSIO.
We have actually solutions for that based on Chronicle, for example. I can scan basically the whole history of EOS within, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks. If you just need the history of one single account from Genesis to now, it will take, well, maybe a month, but basically it's finite time and finite hardware. I don't need huge hardware for that. It is possible if you need for some financial reporting specific accounts history. It is doable right now. It is history on demand, basically, right? You cannot have that from any public service, especially if you have many. I don't know if someone was gambling on these casinos, they have like thousands of transactions, and it's impossible to get the whole history. So yeah, history on demand.
Gaming too, right? Like that's gonna once gaming on EOS goes mainstream, that's just gonna slam the network even more, right? Like
yeah, and many people were not really careful about their taxation requirements, right? And they use their main account, which they need to report for taxes. They use it for gambling, and they have like thousands of of transactions in the history to deal with. So yeah, that's basically another side of free transactions. If they're free, people are using that carelessly, right? And in the end, the history becomes unmanageable. So these sharding solutions, well, they basically they make this problem more distributed, right? If you're running a side chain for your specific task, your history is not that huge. It's manageable to maintain it, right? So because EOS history, EOS Mainnet history has too much garbage. We had 1 billion transfers per week. It's a lot, all right? So during the full year, more than 1.5 years, basically. One of my kids is noisy here. Yeah, that's
we approve of kids singing in the background. It's definitely
yeah. I actually asked them to be quiet, and that's what they're doing right now.
We're all about music here. The background music is nice.
Right. So yeah, basically history. Well, there are solutions, and I actually made a proposal about more than a year ago already to have my own history solution, which would be more compact than what we have now. Because basically, both Hyperion and Diffuse, they just need huge hardware. It's enormous, basically. For EOS Mainnet, you need basically a lot of horsepower and storage. What I wanted to propose is some kind of compact, because this state history plugin, the raw data, is very compact, right? At the moment, it's 6 terabytes of data, or 7. But basically, it is compressed already. It's binary. The most compact representation of history is available at the moment. But what these Diffuse and Hyperion are doing, they are basically converting that into some JSON. I don't know what exactly Diffuse is doing, but Hyperion is transferring that into JSON format, storing JSON in Elasticsearch. It takes enormous amount of storage and CPU. So I proposed basically to just make a kind of a shallow index so that you know where to search for a history. If you need the history of a specific account within specific time range, this index would just deliver you where to search for it. And then you search through the binary data. It's slower, but it will save a ton of hardware. And you don't really have many of such requests. Normally, you would need like your account history for last few days or maybe few weeks. But let's say long-term historical data could be retrieved on demand. So that is basically one of my proposals for anyone to throw cash at. I've got like 10 of them, maybe. So that's where we are with the history.
We should just have a show where you just list out all those 10 things, and we'll invite like everyone we can think of who has any money. It's like, hey, listen, this is where you come and listen to cc32d9, and he's going to share a bunch of stuff with you that you can just invest in and get paid. What? We'll take a small 10% cut, and everybody wins.
Yeah, well, I'm basically a backend engineer, right? So I'm not developing end user solutions, end user products. So these things are difficult to sell. I mean, those who work in the technology, they understand the importance of it. They don't have money. Those who have money, they don't understand the importance of it because it's some geeky server-side things, right?
Isn't that kind of just a communication problem, right? Because the solutions that you guys come up with are obviously really intense and really awesome, and it's not like you're not identifying real problems. You're identifying real challenges. It's just a matter of figuring out how to make the value proposition so that somebody with capital can come in and understand it, and apply that capital in a way that at least is plausibly going to see some returns.
Yeah. Well,
cool.
basically, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying in that direction. Basically, this e-commerce or this NFC stickers is kind of going into direction of end user products, right? So I'm trying to approach closer to the user, as close as I'm able, because I'm really bad at user design, for user interface design, or mobile application design. But I'm trying to bring this closer to the mobile application developers so that they can build their part. So yeah, working on that. Let's see how it goes.
All right.
So Jose had a question that I thought was really good that might tie into this. I don't think I missed any, but he said, I'm pretty new with smart contracts in general, and I want to develop one. Which resources would you recommend to start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the development introduction course that I made myself.
Wait, I'm going to change the cover image because, you've done a lot of awesome stuff, but, you're really good at shilling your own stuff on the show. I love it. It's great.
And yeah, it's good.
No, I basically, I don't know, is there chat or some private chat comments? Can I?
You do the private chat. I'll throw it. In the
okay, I will. Wait, I need to find that link. But basically, well, there's a bunch of resources actually, and everyone who asks on developers chat. Yeah, first of all, Telegram developers chat on Telegram. That is the ultimate place to ask questions. It is an awesome community. People are very helpful. Basically, the developers chat is the thing where you need to ask first. And people are, of course, asking where to look for materials, and I'm answering maybe once every few weeks where to search for it. So there's, of course, developers portal at Block One, which is a ton of documentation and examples. This is the link to my own stuff. Basically, in autumn 2019, I made a 3-day course at University of Geneva. So it was before COVID, and at University of Geneva, there's a, let's say, advanced study course for people we had students between 30 and 60, something like that. So basically, and the audience was completely different. Some people were developers, some people were more like product engineers, right? So basically technical analysts, let's say. And I tried to explain them what EOSIO was at that time, and basically tried to bring the picture, how the blockchain works, how smart contracts work, how they interact with each other. We tried a few things. We had scatter, we had a few accounts on Jungle Testnet, and we compiled the basic token contract. So that was, and all materials are free to use. They're open. So basically, on that link, I put all the slides. So I hope that will be useful for other people. But it's a hard job to teach. Actually, it was like 3 days course. I spent a few days before that to prepare that, and then basically after a day of teaching, I was just sleeping. I was just dead basically for the whole next day. It's just an enormous work. I actually didn't expect it to be so hard, but basically, yeah. In the end, people got the idea. Out of like 7 students, like maybe 3 or 4 people understood what it is. Maybe 2 of them basically figured out that they could do smart contracts and how they can. They were basically developers, hands-on developers who were quite quick on learning this stuff and getting hand on it. But there were some people who are more, let's say, generic IT people, right? For them, it was a bit hard. So, and it was also hard for me because I was just expecting audience which is technically more familiar with the stuff and with the Linux console. They were mostly Windows users. I had to change the direction just during the course. I was just switching to the topics which were more interesting to them. So yeah, basically, but then there's developers portal, developers.io, EOS.io. That is a website maintained by Block One. They invested a lot of time in documenting the whole thing. So.
Sorry, I just wanted to get to a couple people's questions that I think we are going to skip over for today, but come back and keep asking them because it's something that Jimmy and I are going to focus on. Moda was asking about making an NFT line and doing some different things like that. We can actually talk about how to do that now. We're also going to be highlighting. We've had a conversation with Jonah. They're actually redoing their entire sort of interface for that. And so he asked us to wait until they get that done, and then we're going to actually do a bunch of educating on that stuff. So a lot more on this channel is coming around now. We saw a couple more people that were interested in that as well. But I definitely wanted to get your stance on this, Stan. I don't like calling you Stan. cc32d9 is more fun.
I can't pronounce it myself.
It's more fun. See, and like I have to like look at it every time. cc32d9. What? It's easy. It's not actually. So anyway, Gary asked if B1 was watching, what would you tell them?
Well, they are actually watching. I mean, not this show in particular, but I am in contact with them.
They never miss one of these shows. Like everybody knows. For sure. Gary's actually from Block One. You guys didn't know that. He's actually their little like. That's a lie. I don't know who that is. But Gary, well, you're awesome. Thank you for the questions.
I had a few calls with Block One, and I'm chatting with their core engineers just regularly. Todd Fleming, Kevin Hefner, and a few other. Basically, the core software engineering guys. I'm in contact with them because we are finding some problems. We're reporting bugs. We're asking questions about architecture. If I want to build something that is not clear, I know where to ask. And Block One developers are really helpful in that. Let's say Kevin Rose, I'm in chat with him as well. So I had a few calls with a few other guys like Serge and Rashan. So I don't know. I mean, they are well aware of what I'm doing. They are basically their hands are tied by some legal restrictions and corporate whatever, I don't know, corporate policies and many things that they are not able to talk about. A lot of frustration as well because many things were basically quite positively expected and happening, and then you wait for months and nothing is happening, right? So it's a hard love, right? Very hard, tough love with Block One. Maybe my most difficult business customer or business partner in my consulting career, basically. So I don't know what to say. Basically, yeah, they're doing a great job. we find some struggles working on certain stuff, but it's life.
Indeed, it is.
Right.
All right, Jimmy, are you there? What's happening right now? Sorry,
I'm
flipped screens around. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. What else? What else we got? What's going on? We're coming up on an hour, so we could probably call it whenever we want. I guess.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to ask, Stan, of everything that you're working on right now, what are the things that we as just sort of noob consumers, what are we not paying enough attention to in your mind?
Nice way to make them think. I mean,
I'm totally puzzled. I'm puzzled because I'm on the other side of the game, right? I'm not even using scatter a lot.
That's the thing. If you that's right, honestly, and this is a question that you might not have an answer for right now, and that's okay too. And we're willing to wait for it because but that's some students work on the back. Sorry, go ahead.
You remember that there was this funny diagram. Do you need blockchain? The only answer is no, right? It is still we don't have killer application for blockchain, right? Most of, let's say, human daily life things that basically common people are facing, they work fine without a blockchain. It's really a struggle to bring blockchain into the needs of a daily people's life. So that is basically, I don't know. It's not basically, we can't tell people to pay attention more to that. It's mostly our job actually to demonstrate basically to what we can do. But on the other side, it's also difficult to demonstrate. We have awesome tools, we have awesome technology. What do we use it for? Well, for gambling and money transfers. Money transfer is questionable because it's not regulated, right? So there are some restrictions on that and complications. And basically, what else can we do? This and authenticity and timestamping. That's one of the topics. Basically, word proof got popular on that. That's at least for writers, for content creators, that is something that blockchain can bring right now, today. If you want to protect your intellectual property, we have tools for that available right now. So that's where common people who want to protect their intellectual property, I mean, just show them this is the tools that we have. They can use. They're quite user friendly, right? You need to learn a few tricks, but basically it's working. Basically for other kinds of users, difficult to say again. Yeah, there are some voice or other social platforms which are trying to use blockchain. They are not really popular yet. There's discussions.
Yeah, with Jacques. He's actually on Thursday.
Yes, that basically is a good step forward, right? And they're trying to build it more user friendly.
Yeah.
Again, I looked at it about a year ago. The onboarding was disaster because, I mean, from a mobile phone, I mean, if I want to use Twitter, right, and I don't have an account, it's just a few clicks and I got an account, easy. There, I need to register an account and I need to save the private key somehow. It was a struggle. They're working on simplifying that so that average user can basically, in a few clicks, start using that. So, that's where we're going.
On Thursday, but yeah, like you said, they've worked on simplifying that. And the other thing that I think that they've done a good job on, that it's a little bit underrated at this point, is they've actually been able to allow people to create like easy EOS accounts within their app, which, like, as you know, is probably one of the biggest shortcomings of EOS, like to actually like be able to like create an account, right? I guess I was hoping that was where voice was going to come in, that you would create a voice account and you would get a free account, right? And so like now with this whole kind of idea that like you look at like Ethereum or you look at these other blockchains where you just go in, and it's not easy, but like you just go in and you create a free account, and it's still a stepping stone for EOS, right? Like Wax is great, like with the Wax Cloud wallet, right? You don't necessarily own your keys. It looks like Ultra's going down the same route as well, and both are bridging the gap between Ethereum, Telos, and EOS now with Wombat Wallet. You know, you're able to do it, but like back in those days, like it was hell. Like, it was like,
no, it is getting easier. Upland is actually creating like hundreds of accounts per week, so it is ongoing. And well, that's how technology is built, right? So on Ethereum, you can create 10,000 accounts. It doesn't cost, basically, because I mean, account is basically your private key, or let's say public key. Until there's any transaction with this key, it doesn't exist, right? So you can have millions of them. If they're not doing anything, they're not creating any burden for the system.
Sorry, one more time. Can you say
on Ethereum or Bitcoin, right? You can create like millions of private keys. If you're not doing anything with them, they're not consuming resources.
Right.
On EOSIO, it's memory, right? It's basically server memory. It does have cost, right? It has hardware cost, maintenance costs, traffic. So it is a resource which needs to be managed, and you cannot just give free accounts to anyone. You need to somehow limit the rates, right? So you need to moderate, basically. You can't just give account to everyone for free. You need to somehow at least make sure that it is a real person and not a robot. So that's where the challenge is coming from. But basically, EOSIO 2.1 is coming up, so there's a beta available for testing already. They introduce a different way of mapping the smart contract memory into physical computer memory. So basically, it will be mostly on disk now. So you don't need to map the whole smart contract memory into RAM of a server, physical RAM of a server. So basically, it will be cheaper. You can have easy like gigabytes or maybe terabytes of smart contract data in the blockchain. So that means RAM costs will drop. So the cost of creating an account will also drop quite a lot. So
you mentioned Upland, which actually just jogged my memory. And like, yeah, Corey, we had them on last week, I guess. It seems a lot longer, but like you were able to essentially create your account and all of that live. But I just wanted to point out to our viewers as well, we'll probably go over this on Thursday. But yeah, we were pretty excited about Upland, and there's actually an ongoing it'll be in our Thursday weekly update post, but there's an ongoing kind of content competition to write about Upland on PublishOX, and they're paying out $1,000 with the ETH to the top prize winners. So all of you Upland fans that might be in the comments, if you're a writer or content creator, make sure you check back in on the main post on Thursday for that link, or just go over to PublishOX and write them up a storm, because what Upland is doing is really cool, and people don't even have to realize that they're on EOSIO, right? So
that's basically one of the directions where this whole blockchain application should go in towards the user. Basically, the user just downloads an app and starts using it, right? It shouldn't matter for the user if it's EOS blockchain or Telos blockchain or anything else. The user just needs a smooth interaction, and also blockchain needs to have meaning, right? So especially if it's related to cash, for example, some electronic cash solution, of course, you need some accountability and basically no double spending, and so basically the blockchainy things you need for any kind of financial application. For user interaction, I don't know, it depends as well. So sometimes the user doesn't really need anything from blockchain. They just need to work. They just need the application to work, right? So yeah, but I think there will be more like that, more applications where the user just doesn't have any idea what's running behind. They just download an app and start using it. Yeah, that's actually one thing that I forgot to mention. I'm also part of Europechain team. Europechain is basically another EOSIO blockchain, but it's also a consultancy. And Europechain is developing a few software products, and one of them is called Fact. Fact is basically the software which is aiming to documenting stuff, right? So for example, I don't know, you take a car in insurance, you rent a car. You need to make a few photos and prove that these photos were made before you start using this car, right? So, and it's not Photoshop. That's so you need to somehow timestamp your interaction with the car before you start using it. And then if the insurer or let's say this car lending service has any problems with you, you can present this, right? So this kind of application basically is blockchain. This is where blockchain is very helpful, because we have transactions, we have timestamps, we have signatures, we have integrity. If something happened at a specific time on the blockchain, you can't deny it. It happened, right? So you have fact documented on the blockchain. So I hope in this direction there will be more, let's say, more applications, more use cases, all kinds of compliance as well. So I don't know, a farmer needs to be compliant, right? So how much chemicals the farmer is allowed to use, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a permaculturalist, so I'm quite interested in like the food supply chain, that dynamic, like animal rights and things like that as well. So I'm really excited. Like, I'm gonna out myself, but like a couple of my early investments that I lost a lot on was actually like TE Food. Like I really like what they were doing in the US. As you mentioned, like Europechain with their compliance and stuff. So I think we're definitely gonna have you come back on some point just to figure out how this story with these chips that you've created ends, because I think that personally for me that's a really cool idea. I'm really happy that you took the time to join us. So if you can in the future, please come back, because I know Like the people in the comments, like they really enjoyed being able to interact with you and ask you the questions. I mean, it says it right there. Hodolios cc32d9 is legend, right? And that's not the first legend comment. So whatever you're doing, Stan, just keep doing it, because people love.
I love building awesome stuff. Basically, sometimes I'm not getting paid for that, but I love creating stuff. It's what keeping me alive, basically, right? So, and sometimes it's just coming all of a sudden. I have some idea and I start digging it. One of the ideas actually related to agriculture is IoT, all kinds of basically. So we have tons of different sensors and IoT microchips and radio transmissions protocols for transmitting data. So you can already, like out in the field, you can put sensors and they measure moisture, temperature, chemical analysis of your soil and stuff like that. But there's nobody even started to actually authenticate this kind of data, to prove that it actually existed at this particular moment in time in a specific place. To basically, you need to sign this data and prove that it. So all these IoT solutions at the moment, they are basically for self-consumption, right? You as a farmer, you put your sensors out in the field and you consume this information. You trust trust this information. You don't need to present it to anyone else. You monitor your own field, right? But you can do one step forward. You can actually share this kind of data. Maybe not the farmer field, but for example, pollution in a city. So you can do air purity measurements around the city. For that, you need to make sure that this data is authentic. It's not spoofed. It's basically, especially when something happens all of a sudden, some accident happens, you need to present the proof of environment conditions.
And when you look at a country like New Zealand as well, like New Zealand flips everything on their head, really. Like, one of the things I really like about New Zealand is New Zealand actually pays people to not cut down trees on their property. Like, this is like the future that we need to be living in with all of the environmental concerns, right? Corey has a couple things that he's really interested in that he doesn't talk about on this channel because he gets like, really excited and really worked up. And this is like environmentalism for me is this thing. So I'm probably going to have to cut myself off soon. But like, I do see a level of accountability that blockchain could bring to that space. I mean, imagine if these trees were accounted on the blockchain. Imagine if the mycelial network that's running, below the surface of the ground, which is essentially the internet highway of nature, the neurotransmitters that fire like rapidly within our brain, it's the original internet essentially was somehow accounted for on the blockchain. And like you said, with the sensors, something changing in reality, actually altering what's on the blockchain would translate somehow into some sort of value add. I mean, we're not really there yet because a lot of the products that we create, a lot of the things that we do, we don't actually pay the real value for these products. They're not actually counted, like the pollution and the degradation and the transportation costs and all of these things. Like, yeah, there's no way that you're buying most of these, toys at Toys R Us for your kids for like $3. Like, it's just not possible, right? So I personally see blockchain as this ability to be able to, implement these things and see these things in real time with real change. With that, I cut myself off. I do apologize for that.
Yeah, I think, well, we had a good time. Let's do it again, maybe in a couple of months.
Yeah, anytime. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. Corey, I know you're excited about tomorrow. We got one of your favorite people on the show.
Yeah, I mean, we got Anders on tomorrow, and he is one of my favorite people. It's just like he's like just a generally cool motherfucker.
Me too, yeah. And he was our first actual guest on Media Moguls. So tune in. We're going to do some really cool stuff, I think, tomorrow. We've got some new NFTs that are on EOS that we're also going to be giving away, courtesy of EOS Detroit. And we're putting together like a little thing to do that. So we'll probably talk about that. And yeah, anything you want to out us with there, Corey?
No, that's pretty much it, man. I think we freaking solved all the world's problems today. So nailed it.
All right.
Later, Sam.